learning A to Z, I should say, Deb, correct? Uh, so uh, I've been a chief academic officer for about 120 schools internationally. And the reason I tell you that is because I actually utilize Learning A to Z products, RAS Plus as an example, in our K through 12 programs and many, well, pretty much all of our schools. And so that's how I actually got to know Learning A to Z. I've been with Learning A to Z now for going on 6 years and really enjoying it. And so thank you for being with us today. We're going to be talking about the reading rope today, weaving stronger skills, if you will. And we're also going to give away some things, Leo. So Leo's kind enough to give away some prizes. I'll let you know when we are going to give those away. It is not going to be something we are just going to give. You are going to have to earn the prizes. And so some of the first correct answers will win those prizes. And when we say prize, I believe, Leo, we're talking about one of our platforms for a number of months at Leo's discretion that we will provide to you of your choice, I believe. So let's go ahead and get started today. And again, we're talking about the reading rope. Thank you for joining us. And when I talk about the reading rope, what I'm talking about is actually the top end of that literacy rope that you see. Now, the complete literacy rope is when we take that skilled reader, and of course, we apply those core writing skills. When we do that, and only when we do that, do we get a strong literacy rope. And it's something that I always like to say whenever I'm traveling and providing these or facilitating these presentations. People think of literacy as just reading, and it is far more than reading. And as we continue, I'm sure we'll have some other sessions where we will talk about the writing rope, and then, of course, putting those two strands together to create that literacy rope. All right. So what do we mean when we talk about the reading rope? We're talking about two specific things. We're talking about word recognition skills, which are foundational skills, and we're talking about language comprehension skills. And what we often do is we apply the language comprehension skills before we have a core understanding or a critical understanding, our students do, of those core word recognition skills. And then, of course, for the literacy rope, we're talking about writing instruction. When we talk about foundational skills, we're talking about things like decoding and encoding, phonological and phonemic awareness, and sight recognition. Please don't confuse sight recognition with high frequency words. All of you are reading this material right now that you see on your screen. That is sight recognition. You see it, you understand it, you recognize it. Sight recognition. That's where we want all of our students to get to eventually. When we talk about language comprehension, we're talking about vocabulary knowledge, language structures, literacy knowledge, etc. And what's really important when we're teaching our students is applying the word recognition and the language comprehension and trying to interweave those as much as we possibly can. And I'll give you an example of this in a bit. And of course, writing instruction, we're talking about writing craft, critical thinking, text structure. We won't hit on that subject today. To continue, here's where the game begins. And Leo's going to give away a prize today. Okay, so please pay attention. And the first one here to write the correct answer in the chat is going to win our first prize. And Leo will kind of explain what that will be. Okay, so get ready with your chat. And by the way, when I mention chat, please, any questions that you have, please let us know. Put it in that chat box. Leo will keep a close eye on that, and he will let me know if there's a question that comes across the board that we need to address immediately. All right, here we go with the game. Language comprehension has three processing systems, and those processing systems are phonological processing system, the meaning processing system, and context processing system. So what do we mean by phonological processing? Well, before we got on the meeting today, for some reason, Deb told me this, and thank you for sharing this with me, Deb. But Deb said, you know what, Jason? Cards are really important to my husband. I said, Deb, I really appreciate you sharing that information with you. Not quite sure why you did, but that's fantastic. So all of you, you heard and you recognized the word cards when I said that sentence, correctly? And you all understood cards are really important to Deb's husband. Everyone heard that, which means your phonological processing system is working perfectly, and I'm going to assume that it is. The second part of this is the meaning processing system. This is where things get really confusing for our students. So what students do is when we give them sentences, when we give them books, when we talk to them, they have a stored vocabulary that they are using, and it's far different from ours, right, as adults. So what they do in their meaning processing system is they review their stored vocabulary for the possible meanings of the word cards as an example. Now it gets a little more confusing because in the context processing system, now what your students and what we are doing right now as adults and teachers, we are considering the surrounding context of that sentence. Deb said cards are really important to her husband. Thank you very much. Here is my question, and here is where the chat comes into play. When Deb said cards are really important to her husband, what did Deb mean by cards when referring to her husband? Go ahead and put it in the chat. And the first right answer that we get, we'll go ahead and call the dogs there, and we will go ahead and give away the prize to the first person that comes up with the correct answer. Mel says, greeting cards, keep them coming. We won't tell you it's the right answer yet. Birthday cards, thank you, Kate. Keep coming. Credit cards. The reason I laugh, game cards, thank you. Paula, the reason I laugh at credit cards, whenever I do this, it's one of the first 1, 2, or 3 things that teachers will always say, the credit cards. It always happens. Game cards, okay, good, good, good. Flashcards, that's another one that's great with teachers because Deb, your husband likes to go home and he does like to, he enjoys his flashcard games that he plays, business cards, etc. Okay, we did have a right answer there. And I'll share, well, Leo's keeping track of that, okay? So we'll get to that in a second. All right, so let's go ahead and share the right answer. Footy cards, there you go, sports cards, etc. Bingo cards. We're not talking about playing cards. We are not talking about business cards or credit cards, and we're not talking about the footy cards. We're not talking about the sports cards. What we are referring to is this. Now, pay close attention because here's what I did not do as your instructor today, or Deb did not do when she said cards are really important to her husband. She didn't provide, and I did not provide the proper context. And this is what we often don't do with our students appropriately enough. And I am guilty, number one, of doing this all of the time. I get ahead of myself and assume that students know exactly what I'm talking about. And far too often, students absolutely do not, especially in the international communities that I've worked with. Okay, so let's do one important thing that we all need to slow down and do with our students. Let's give this proper context. Here we go. Who wins? Now, that sentence right there tells you who won the prize. But the reason that now is so clear is that I simply gave this proper context. He never wants our kids to get a birthday gift without the perfect card. Now, the point of this exercise is this. We need to slow down with our students. We need to make sure that we are providing proper context with everything that we are doing. As a teacher, I would get frustrated sometimes. Why are my students not getting this? And sometimes it's simply because I've not provided the proper context for them to understand what I indeed want to teach. Leo, who won this one? Can you go ahead and tell me? Tell us.
The congratulations goes to educator teacher Kate in the chat room. So congratulations, Kate. And I will check with you, but you just won a 3 months access to ROS Plus program with 50 more than 50,000 of teacher resources, and also the over 3,000 level book 3,000 ebooks for students to read. I will check with you, but if you happen to already have that program, we will provide you access to the other program on our platform. But with that, thank you and congratulations.
Awesome. And congratulations, Kate. And we'll have a few more games here. So we're not done with the games. And if Kate wins again, then I guess Kate will have to win another platform, if you will. So we'll continue. All right. Thanks again, Leo, for playing along with us. Okay. Let's get to the second point of this little exercise that we just did. Everything that we just did surrounded itself by the sounds that we are hearing. And I actually lied to you. There are four parts to the processing model for reading comprehension. When we talk about reading comprehension, we are including one vital detail to all of these things that are so important to the previous three processing models. It's the orthographic processing system. And of course, orthographic, as you probably already know, is a long word for print. Here's the second part, the second reason of this, second, I guess, critical point of this exercise. All too often, we put print in front of students before they have a full phonological processing system knowledge. What they hear is very important, how to make those sounds, where those sounds begin and end. How do we differentiate those sounds to form words and sentences, etc.? Before we ever provide print, that phonological processing, phonemic awareness system is really vitally important. Okay, leading to this, there's a very simple view of reading. And the simple view of reading is, according to the latest science of reading research, word reading or foundational skills coupled with listening comprehension should equal a great reader. That is our goal, of course. And I'm a really visual person, so I like these little visuals to add to this concept. When I talk about the word recognition skills or foundational skills, what I'm referring to specifically in those little threads of the rope are decoding and encoding, phonological and phonemic awareness, and of course, sight recognition is our ultimate goal for that fluency. And then in the language comprehension, those individual strands are the vocabulary knowledge that we just addressed, the background knowledge that we just addressed, along with language structures, literacy knowledge, and verbal reasoning. So you can take a screenshot of this if you want. If you need, that's fine. And if you even want a copy of this presentation, you may certainly have it. Please let Deb know, and then I can forward this to Deb if that's something that you would wish to have. I don't have any secrets, as I always say when I'm presenting. You can have whatever I am showing you. So as we continue, this is something that looks probably a little more familiar to you. It's the 5 essential components of literacy, which here again, it starts, Mel says, copy of the slides would be awesome. Awesome, Deb. All right, let me know. Deb, I'll send this to you. Please remind me. I'll send you the copy of the presentation. You can forward it to everyone on the call today if that's what they would like. Perfect. No problem. Thanks, Mel. All right, here's where our second game begins. I have two arrows there. One is to phonemic awareness and one is to phonics. And I'm actually going to take away the phonemic awareness because I'm going to make this hopefully a little bit easier. I'm going to call this phonological awareness, okay? So instead of phonemic awareness, let's include phonological awareness. My question is this. Please put it in the chat. When we get the correct answer, we'll win another prize, Leo. Thank you, Leo, for giving away so much today. My question is this. What is the difference, the fundamental difference between phonological awareness and phonics? What is the fundamental difference between phonological awareness and phonics? And it's quite okay to be wrong. I've done this presentation. I don't know how many times Leo has seen it. I've traveled the world and I do this. And educators, sometimes struggle with this because we haven't always been taught how to teach these foundational skills. We just didn't go to school with that kind of teaching. Many of us did not. And so it's something that we really need to address at the most fundamental level. All right, Mel says phonological awareness is the understanding of phonics. Mel, can you dig in a little bit deeper, or anyone else can steal Mel's idea and dig a little bit deeper on that concept? And I'll just give this maybe another 60 seconds. And if we don't get what we need, all right, Kate says, Kate, phonological awareness is auditory word sounds and phonics is the written words and sounds. All right. And Danielle says, I believe phonological awareness is the umbrella term while phonics is one part. Yeah. So Danielle, you're absolutely correct. Phonological awareness is the umbrella term. And here we go again. This is terrible. Kate was not only the first, but she was actually more on the money when she said that phonological awareness is the auditory sound and phonics is the written word. And then Kate says, sorry. Narelle says, awareness is hearing, thinking about, the second is application. All right, so that is correct as well. Long story short, uh, phonological awareness is all about the sounds that we hear, and it is the umbrella term. It is only phonics and only phonics when we start introducing the letters. And of course, as Kate said, that is the written word. And so it is only phonics, only in our teaching when we start introducing letter concepts. And we all have this in our curriculum, but we get these things confused. Phonemic awareness is one level below phonological awareness, right? So when I talk about phonological, phonemic awareness, and phonics, it's kind of a scaffolded concept, right? And again, I'm a visual person, so hopefully this helps if there's any confusion. Oh, and by the way, here in a second, Leo is going to tell Kate what she has won again, and we'll play another game. So it's okay. We'll do this. Someone else besides Kate will win. Kate, you play, and let's see what happens. Anyway, phonological awareness. It's the hearing. So in other words, if I said the word clock, your students might understand that clock rhymes with rock. They might understand that clock starts with the k sound. Those are all basic phonological awareness items. It's the umbrella. Now, to dig in underneath that umbrella, when we talk about phonemic awareness, we're still talking about the sounds, right? So that's digging into it a little bit deeper. Now, your students can understand that clock can be broken down into those individual sounds, the k, ah, k, and they can blend those sounds to hear that it says clock. And then, of course, phonemic awareness. And only when we talk about phonics, when we talk about phonics, that is only what now the students are saying. That is when we start introducing the letters to form those words. And again, I don't mean to be repetitive with your understandings. It's just that I've learned through my years of doing this that I can't assume that people understand the difference because a lot of times, educators don't, and it's a struggle. And so when you see these things as part of your curriculum, it's important to know what it is you're teaching and why it is that you're teaching that. Leo, very quickly, do you want to tell Kate what she has won for her second prize? Don't apologize, Kate. It's okay.
Not really. I wasn't ready, but I was gonna say no repeated winner. But you know what, Kate definitely deserve. So Kate, once again, I would double confirm with you the other programs that you don't already have on our program and our platform, and Debbie and I will work with you on setting it up for you. So once again, thank you and congratulations.
We have a number of different platforms, right? Foundations A to Z, writing A to Z, vocabulary A to Z, etc. Okay. So back to my visual. We've already upset. I'm not sure how many people are on the call. I think it's a small group today, right? But maybe so. We'll get another one. All right. Thanks, Kate. Congratulations. Again with the visual. The top are those foundational skills, and the bottom is the language comprehension skills. Now, when we talk about that image, wouldn't it be nice if we could combine these tasks into maybe some model text? Because as teachers, you're not teaching these only in isolation. There's explicit instruction, of course. But then we're also challenged as teachers to try to blend all of these different teachings together, possibly, as I mentioned, using one model text. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to do that? Whenever you're looking at your resources, and of course, look, I'm going to show you a RAS Plus resource. It doesn't have to be RAS Plus or a Learning A to Z resource. It can be whatever you might choose, but let's try to make sure that you're making your life as effective and as efficient as possible so that you're not going to teachers pay teachers and Pinterest and trying to just make things work. Let me give you an example of that. So when I get back to the 5 essential components of literacy, everything that you're seeing above that black line, those are, of course, the foundational skills, the word recognition skills, decoding, phonological awareness, sight recognition, etc. When we're talking about everything underneath that line, those are the basic skills that cover those language comprehension skills. So what do I mean by combining these tasks together in an effective and efficient way? And I would inspire you to find resources that can do that. For an example, I'm not sure what grade levels that we have here today are being represented. Let's assume that, many of you are primary school teachers, K through 5. Uh, let's say for now you're a grade 1 teacher. Okay, let's pretend that. And of course, keep in mind whatever it is that you teach, you can apply to this concept. So let's say you're a grade 1 teacher. Let's also say that in your curriculum at this point in time, maybe this week, you are covering specifically the long eval diagram to throw out a phonics skill. Let's also say, because you're not teaching these skills in isolation, you're doing a number of things at a time. So during this week, you're also covering the grammar skill of capitalization and punctuation. Um, let's also say you want to find one anchor text that covers that and the comprehension skill that you might be covering this week or two of sequence of events. And because you have so much time to kill, let's also say that you have to teach science, which many of you have to do as part of a literacy block as well when you blend those together. So let's blend some cross-curricular content area items. And let's do science and maybe let's say biology. Wouldn't it be nice if you could take these skills, all of these skills, and condense them into not only very specific, explicit instructional resources, but model text that you could utilize to teach in class, utilize that will accomplish all of these things at one time. So what do I mean by this? So let me give you a brief example, and I'll use the food chain, which is a science resource, okay? So I'm going to X out of this very quickly, and now everyone should be seeing the opening page of a RAS Plus platform as an example of how you can do this. I would suggest that you find resources that allow you to search for exactly what you need. I often talk about this as a fishing concept. As teachers, or I guess as a fisherman, you might go to the ocean, and you're in Australia, so you've got a lot of ocean. And you might go to the ocean, and let's say I could give you one bait, and if you cast that one bait, you could pull up the exact fish that you want every single time in a matter of seconds. Well, wouldn't that be nice? It would take a little bit of the sport out of the fun of fishing, I suppose, but that would be convenient, effective, efficient, right? So I apply this to fishing. If we have, as Leo said, over 55,000 resources, if you're just going and pulling resources from any platform that you're using, or Teachers Pay Teachers or Pinterest, you're doing a lot of fishing, and maybe sometimes for a long period of time. Let's go fishing with one bait, let's cast it, and let's get the exact resource that we need in seconds. So using that prior example that I'd given you right here, with phonics, grammar, comprehension skill, and cross-curricular content. With RAS Plus as an example, if you select this little magnifying glass to find exactly what you want, and again, with your platforms, try to find something that can do this to make your life a little bit more effective and efficient. One of the skills that we focused on was the comprehension skill, well, the phonics skill actually, of the long eval diagram. And so what you can do and what Kate will be able to do is find resources very easily. She can go to her val diagraphs and find the long E, which I've already done, by the way, to save us some time. What Kate can now do here, while she has this, she can go to a comprehension skill that we wanted to cover, and she can find, I think we wanted sequence of events, right? So all of these concepts look familiar as far as what you're teaching, as far as your language comprehension skills are concerned, right? Let's start weaving those skills together. So if I select sequence of events, I've taken my listing from 55,000 to 1,693. Still too many, right? Let's get to the fish that we need exactly. With our skills, you can go to the phonics and you can find, the grammar mechanics, and you can find the grammar mechanics of capitalization and punctuation. And we can sift out resources that way as well. Let's get a little bit more specific. Kate, let's find something related to science. And so maybe because it's science, I want something that is nonfiction. And we even want something that is cross-curricular. And so let's scroll down here, foundational skills, we've got math, there's science, and there's biology. So if I select biology specifically, now I have 55 resources out of 55,000, right? We're starting to really eliminate many of those fish that are in the ocean to get the exact resource that we need for your class. Finally, what I would suggest that you do with your resources is find resources that have differentiation in them as part of the platforms. And so, what I always tell my teachers, I never want them to search by grade level because in a lot of the places that I'll visit, I might have a grade 5 student that is reading at a grade 2 or grade 3 level. That's okay. Those are the students that are in front of us. Let's meet them where they are. And so, because of that, with Learning A to Z as an example, we have 29 differentiated levels of resources. Now, I'm a grade 1 teacher, and I'm going to select a level F because I've used Learning A to Z and RAS Plus, and I know a level F is kind of around the grade 1 resource that I can differentiate. And so when I scroll up, I have 14 fish now in a sea of 55,000 that I have filtered out. So I'm pulling up the exact fish or resource that I need. So if I pull up the food chain, I think is the one that I had on my list. When I pull that resource up, just so I can show you I'm not telling tales out of school, if I scroll down to teach the objectives, because I fish for this particular resource, I'm finding a resource that covers specifically the comprehension skill of sequence of events, language comprehension skills. I'm covering the foundational skill of the long eval digraph. And of course, I'm covering some of those language comprehension skills applied to capitalization and punctuation. Now, as a teacher, when we talk about doing this right here, this is very difficult to do. Whatever you're getting paid, you should triple, quadruple your salary because it's the toughest job in the world. And I wish I could help you do that. But what I can help you do is take this very difficult process and make it a little easier, or at least give you some ideas of how you can do that. Now, when it comes to this, we also want to be able to model instruction appropriately, maybe with some explicit instructional materials, or maybe we cover everything that you see right here because we fish for all of these particular items, right? So if I come back out of this resource just to show you some examples of what you might want to look for when finding resources to help you do these complicated tasks. When you select a resource, try to find something that has projectables that you can teach as a whole class assignment. And keep in mind, when I went fishing for this particular resource, you'll notice some things here that are consistent with the items that we fish for. The long eval digraph phonics as an example. And so this is something I've already done in class, okay? And so it saved it for me. But it looks like with the yellow highlighter, and I pass this around to my students, or if you have smart boards, you can go to the smart board and have them manipulate the board as well. It looks like with a yellow highlighter, I have had students or modeled instruction. We've highlighted all of the long eval diagrams. So there's one fantastic. What does that word say? Need. Excellent job, class. It's chock filled with long eval diagrams. Why? Because this is the resource that we went fishing for, used as a modeled anchor text. We also, because we're working on capitalization and punctuation, just ideas to use with your resources, we can mark through those capitalized words of the first word in each sentence. It looks like with a red pen, because we're working on punctuation, I had students, or at least we modeled this in class, circle their end of sentence and punctuation. And in this case, the periods. And maybe they saw this little comma and you want something that you can edit. So no, that's not correct. And we can talk about why that is incorrect. And then we can go ahead and make our corrections as we go. When we're looking at this difficult concept here, it's really nice if you have at your disposal some resources that you can go fishing for specifically and then manipulate with students and then even assign so that they may annotate text with your digital resources if you have them, just as I have done here. Or when you assign, students can do as well. Coming back very quickly, when we talk about this, it would be great if we could, with a modeled anchor text, do all of these things. But when you go fishing for resources, it's really important that you have some explicit instruction as well. You can't just teach using modeled text. So as an example, what you can do with the RAS Plus resource, as an example, underneath the resources, you can go to things like the decodable text. And when I go to a decodable text, I have number of resources again you can fish for, or you can fish specifically for what you need. But if I have my lessons in decodable text, I can, because I've utilized this resource a lot, I can go specifically to that long eval digraph resource. And right now I'm in a Vietnamese hotel, and so it's a little bit slower. So if I pulled up that anchor text, or I pulled up that individual resource for that decodable, it would give me a resource that looks like this. And here's my long eval digraph, in this case, the bee and the flea. When you find your resources to help you with all of these different strands, when we talk about digital resources, it's really important that you just don't throw screens in front of them, right? So it's important that you have activities where the students can get their hands dirty, they can collaborate, and they can play together, not just with the screens in front of them. The digital resources that you might have are really valuable, but we have to have them play as well. And so you can see that we provide those opportunities. And when we're going fishing, it's really important that you find related books that might help in a different way talk about those individual skills for more explicit instruction. And you can see here, because we've searched for the long eval digraph, find resources or platforms that will allow you to find numerous ways to engage students. In this case, you can see the sound symbol book for a long eval digraph, the read aloud, we need a vacation. We have shared readings, the fuzzy buzzy bee, etc., etc. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's get to another game as we go. All right, so how can we go fishing and find resources that encompass the foundational skills of decoding, phonological, phonemic awareness, sight recognition, along with all of those language comprehension skills? That's one example. And again, I encourage you to find resources that will help you do that in an effective, efficient manner. And if we have time, Leo, I can even show you how we can help you store and prioritize those in a digital file cabinet. All right, getting back to the academic side of things. When it comes to your instruction, you want to find resources that are research-based, that help you carry out explicit, systematic, and of course, multi-sensory instruction. And even when you're talking about the foundational skills, especially as it pertains to the science of reading, something that might follow a scope and sequence that allows you to carry out your instruction in a systematic fashion that will make sense to your students. So what do I mean by that? Scope and sequence, explicit, systematic. Here's what the latest science of reading research tells us. We had talked about phonemic awareness, right? And phonemic awareness is the ability to pull apart the entire words and start picking apart things in a very systematic fashion. Now, you can see here going across the top, the latest science says that we should be teaching these skills progressions that lead to phonemic awareness in this particular order, from left to right. So we should start with blending concepts that lead into segmentation. We should notice those things, help students notice those things, and then start to manipulate those words and those sounds. And so now we get into addition and then deletion, leading into substitution practices with phonemic awareness, just the sounds. And if you look from top to bottom, that is the latest science of reading research that says that we need to start with the whole word when it comes to phonemic awareness. We're not even talking about spelling yet, right? So we go with the whole word, and then we start to really break those words down in a systematic fashion. That, what you're seeing, is precisely what the science says, the order that we should teach these items in. So as an example, when it comes to phonemic awareness, this is your basic functionality of how we should be carrying this out. Now, your curriculum hopefully will help you establish this connection. I'm sure it's following some of the latest research teachings so we can stay on top of things. But as an example, again, we talk about blending, segmentation, addition, deletion, substitution. It's nice to have a scope and sequence that you can follow. And so find a resource that will help you find that order in which we should be teaching things. As an example, what you're seeing here, I think it's an example from a grade one resource. You want to start out when it's talking about phonological awareness, the umbrella concepts. Blending, in this case, onset and rhyme blending is the most basic. And that leads with the initial sounds. And then as we get into things, now we start blending into segmentation or bleeding into segmentation. And maybe you're starting to introduce, because of that segmentation, the final sounds. And as we get into it a little bit further, we're getting into deletion, where we're covering medial sounds while maybe still reviewing the initial and the final sounds as well. It's great if you have a curriculum that helps you establish that. It's really nice if you have a platform that allows you to follow that as well, which your curriculum certainly follows, I'm sure. All right. Phonemic awareness tasks. And we play a game with this, and we're not going to play a game with it today, but go ahead and take a screenshot. Again, I'll share this with you, and so you'll have all of these items. But again, in the proper order, we start with blending, leading into segmentation, leading into isolation, discrimination, deletion skills, finally and ultimately substitution, which is the most complicated. And here what you'll see are the examples of that. So when we're talking about blending, you're already doing this. An example of that is listen, as the teacher, you might say, listen while I say some sounds. Ah. And then you ask your students. Now you put them together to make the whole word, and that's map. But this gives you a basic representation of what each one of these tasks and skills represent. You're being asked to carry this out anyway. It's really nice to have a solid understanding of what it is you're being asked to carry out, what those items are, and what they lead to eventually. Okay. When it comes to this is a very, very, very difficult concept. And this was a brief snapshot of how we could potentially help you carry out this complicated concept of taking those foundational skills and coupling those with language comprehension. Not only that, how you can eventually, I could show you if we have time, we do have a little bit of time pending our questions, even store and prioritize these resources. I'm going to pause here for a second. Leo, anything else to add? And while you're adding that, I'll take a look at Mel's question or his statement while you go ahead and tell us, give us your thoughts.
No, not really. Not on top of that you were presenting academically. But yeah, no, I do see Mel's question. I think it's a great question. So if you like to, take on that, that would be wonderful.
Mel, I love that question, and I'm smiling because I have a direct response. When I was in Dubai and I had those 120 schools, Mel, and this would apply to anyone because we have students that have run the gamut of their range of understanding their educational journey. I told you at the very beginning, I told everyone that I utilize Learning A to Z products, RAS Plus specifically, in grades K through 12. And you say, wow, Jason, you use that in high school and middle school ages? And the answer is yes, I did. I had grade 10 students reading in English at a grade 3, grade 2 level. And that's okay. Again, my challenge as the CAO was to figure out how can we help these students with resources, help teachers provide the appropriate resources where we can reach every student. And so with your question, I teach in special ed. Would you guys say this is okay for high school age who has difficulty sounding words out? The answer is a resounding yes. And we even have schools, look, when I was in the US, we have a number of middle schools, some high schools that applied our resources in this fashion to those students as well. Look, we often put the cart ahead of the horse, right? When you're teaching those word recognition skills, we can't just jump to what you're seeing here, those language comprehension skills. We have to take things step by step. So with your special ed students, absolutely it would be appropriate for them. We have to give them the resources or at least the understanding of where they are in their educational journey and then build from there. We just can't create Rome at the end of the day. So yes, we utilize that. Now, what was important is to help our teachers that might be high school age special ed teachers or middle school teachers, period, to help them understand these basic concepts of the foundational skills and how they bleed into the language comprehension skills. That is one of the bigger challenges. And through some facilitating presentations like this. Maybe you have people in your school that can help those higher level teachers that didn't always get the teaching of those foundational skills, and as far as how to carry that out, that would be paramount, right? But the resources here we utilize for K through 12 for the exact thing, for the exact reason that you mentioned. Now, you said, is the text, though, age appropriate? And that's going to lead me to what I was going to follow up with. So you beat me to the punch. You said, I found a lot of resources that are too young. What we did with our high school and middle school teachers is we recommended the nonfiction resources. And we used those almost solely when it came to RAS Plus. Why is that? With the nonfiction resources in RAS Plus, as an example, the text is at the appropriate level, and it shows really, really well. The imagery, everything looks like any kind of magazine, a journal that you might pick up, any kind of book anywhere that you might pick up of any level. The fiction resources that we have, those do appear, they are for that younger reader. And so sometimes our older students would see that and they would lose interest. So we stuck to the nonfiction to help us with those word recognition skills that then bled into those higher level language comprehension skills. And as you take a look at those resources, you'll see that they are really challenging texts. And so they do not see the difference as far as, well, wow, it's a K through 5, K through 6 resource. You're teaching foundational skills. They are really, really higher level appearance, in appearance at least. And so they show very well. Leo, I'm sure you're looking at some of these as they go, and I'm not paying attention as I'm speaking. Leo, do you have anything that you want to share as far as some of the, and Mel, thank you for that. Love that idea. Leo, is there anything that you want to share as I kind of take a look at what Debbie said? Leo, you mentioned the high-low resource. Go ahead, please expand on that.
Oh no, I was asking. So yeah, so if just to Mel's question about the more mature student or older students, but finding the resources that are too how do I say, age appropriate for an older student. What you're seeing on the screen here that Jason is showing you is we have a resource set called the high-low text set, and this is designed for students who are a little bit older in age, a little bit bigger in age, but the text is lower and more, how do I say? Well, Jason, if you can help me out, I think you're going to be
I
able
can
to
help you. I'll make
visualize
perfect
it
sense.
better than me. But I thought it might be an interesting resource to mention.
Yeah, there's high. So what that means, very briefly, high-low text sets, high interest but lower level. And so they're really appealing to students because of the interest, the content, but they're of course at the appropriate level for those students that are struggling. High interest, lower level. And so we address that in text sets, and we also address those in graphic books, as many students enjoy those as well. And the graphic books, Mel and anyone else that's interested here, if I just kind of scroll through some of these are the graphic books. These are not like your kids' little graphic books. These are really, really, again, I'm saying it, they're high interest because of their appearance and how they look to students. The content, of course, is going to be at a level that they can consume. And so that's the example that Leo gave, and it's a fantastic example. And Deb said that she has some additions to that as well. Deb, did you want to share anything with regard to what you were saying, what you were telling Mel or anyone else that might be on the call?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. I just was explaining to Mel, and she's reached out to me in a chat as well, so we'll also chat offline. We've got quite a few special schools across Australia that really love the resources and use them and get a lot from them. Specifically, both you and Leo beat me to it, the high-low texts. They're very, very valuable. And I think it's one area of the program that's kind of underlooked at, I guess, for some schools. But definitely, Mel, go in and have a look. And then also the comic books as well that you were mentioning, Jason, are also very valuable.
Well, and also, can I take this opportunity and add that for our participants today, our educators today, if you don't happen to already have an access to this program, RAS Plus, which you are seeing on the screen right now, please do reach out to Debbie or myself. I would be happy to set up a trial access for you as well. So that's available to apply self-service from our website directly. But if you do need any assistance on getting a trial access, please do reach out to our team. So just so I'll mention that as well.
And I will close with this, but if there are any questions, I'll stay here as long as you need, but I know you're on vacation. And so I know that you wouldn't be upset if we did keep it to an hour or a little bit less. Let me close with this. So I put this back on the screen again. Again, just to reiterate the rope, to reiterate how you can find resources in a very effective, efficient manner. But what I've not hit on, I'll do this in 2 minutes, is how to store and prioritize those resources. And the reason that, well, I don't need to tell you that, your teachers, why it's so important. My wife, as an example, she used to have walls filled with paper copies with file cabinets where she kept all of her resources, and she would try to sift through and find those. Oh, forbid you would get on Pinterest, teachers pay teachers, and try to find something and make it work, and then continuously go fishing every time you need a resource. We talked about how to go fishing. What's important after you found your resource that fits your curriculum is that you store and prioritize that resource so that you are able to, in the coming years, the next year, when it comes to that concept or that part of your scope and sequence that you're following, you go right to those resources and they're already available. So what do I mean? And we'll close with this one, then I'll open up any questions that you have. With RAS Plus, like Kate will have, you'll have a file cabinet. And so if you select that file cabinet, again, please don't judge me by my file folders and what I call them. You can call these whatever you want, but I call these my treasure chest because that's where I put my literacy treasures. Ha, ha, ha. And so if I'm a grade 1 teacher, as an example, to give you just a brief look at what it could look like. This is not how you would do it, but hopefully this instigates some kind of idea of how you might apply your folders. Make it fit your curriculum. Make it fit your specific scope and sequence, etc. As an example, I had a school in Southeast Asia with Leo about 3 months ago. They said, hey, Jason, we love the file cabinets. Can you show us an example of our first month of our scope and sequence, and so that we can then create the rest of ours? And I did that. It took me about 1 hour. Why? Because I know how to go fishing. So as an example, here with that grade 1, term 1, and these resources will look familiar to you, I think. In grade 1, term 1, here are some of the basic concepts they wanted covered. They wanted to cover the comprehension skills, sequence of events in these weeks. They wanted to cover vowel digraphs. So if I go to the long vowel digraph and the long vowel E, here's where you'll see my anchor text that I utilized, the food chain. Keep in mind, during their month of instruction, they were covering the grammar skills of capitalization and punctuation. Here is my shared reading for the long E, the fuzzy buzzy B, my sound symbol book, my week 6 week-long instruction for capitalization and punctuation and grammar. Here's my read aloud, we need a vacation, and of course my decodable, the bee and the flea. I put all of that in a resource in a file folder for that specific skill. And it's not just one resource, but it was multiple resources to help engage students in multiple different ways, whether that is independent practice or modeled practice, okay? But what I want to open up to you, and I'm sorry it's not as brief as I said it might be, is I want to open up the concept of you're taking your files that you have maybe on paper or they're stored in different file places. Use on one platform a digital file cabinet, where you can store and encapsulate what is important to you, what makes sense to you, so that now each year you're not constantly going fishing. Even if it's effective phishing, you don't want to do it all of the time. We're always updating resources every month, literally. So you'll find new ones that you might want to include. I'll end with this last bit, the file cabinets. As teachers, we need to be working together a lot more. We reinvent the wheel way too often. And so what we allow you to do as an example with the file folders is we allow you to share these. And so maybe you have in the US, we have school districts, or maybe you have sister schools that you work, maybe 10 different schools. You can share the same file cabinets. Maybe you just want to share this with your school. And so if you have multiple licenses, you can do that. Or if you have teachers that you want to work with, you can share those with grade level cohorts. Or if you just have a bestie that you work with a lot, you can share your file folders that way as well. So we give you the autonomy to populate your own folders, yet still create folders that you can share as well. And again, the reason I say this to end it is because this is a lot of stuff that you do. It's great to be effective and efficient when you go fishing, but once you find the fish, let's go ahead and keep that fish so that you can keep revisiting that every year without continuously reinventing the wheel. I hope that makes sense. Okay. It's 6 minutes left before the top of the hour. It is your vacation. I really appreciate you spending this time with us on your vacation. I'm sorry that it's during your vacation hours, but it's such a pleasure that you would even think about joining us today. Deb and Leo, any last thoughts, anything that you would like to share or want me to address that hasn't been, etc.? I'll leave it to you. But in the meantime, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I'd just like to ask if possible, and you did suggest that you could share with me your presentation, and I do understand that we have recorded as well, so we'll send out the recording and your presentation to everyone who's jumped on today. And thank you again very much for giving up your time to jump on and do the presentation. I've seen your presentation many times, but I have to say, even myself, I still learn new things each time, so thank you again.
Absolutely. And Kate, I guess she got a great gift. She's already on vacation. It's a great way to start her new term. So good job, Kate.
Yeah, and Kate, we can also work with you on how you like to have these access and the 3 months access to the program. When you would like to have that activated, so we can work around the better timing for you as well. So we would surely be in touch and communicate with you on that as well. And also, just the only thing and last thing, and the only thing from my side is besides thank you for all your valuable time to joining us today. Debbie, thank you for you organizing this event, getting everybody together for this afternoon. And so yeah, just also one really last thing is that IG3 Education is our exclusive business partner or distributor partner for Australia. So if you have any question about our Learning SZ program, please do feel free to reach out to Debbie or Jason or myself. But yeah, just thank you again for being here with us today.
Thanks all.
Thank you. And then if there's any question, please do, there's a few more minutes, do feel free to open your mic if you want to ask in voice or in the chat room. Or else have a great afternoon and thanks again. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Carrie. So, Debbie, so I think the audio
Hey,
should
you're recording still, Leo.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause recording or stop recording.